Howdy, this is Victory Dragon King Dago here, and today I'm teaching you the art of the deal, but not that type of deal, or not that type of art. We're talking about everyone's least favorite people to play against, the diplomats. Okay, so first, disclaimer. When I say diplomats, I do not mean players who whine and complain about the state of the game in terms of getting an actual advantage over players through pity. That is not what I'm referring to when I refer to a diplomat, so don't think that, and don't use this as a video to dunk on your friends, or be like, oh, that's so you, or, oh, you're such a nah, we're not doing that. That deserves its own whole rant that I don't think anybody wants me to film, because the moment I film that, I'm going to say a lot of mean things, and my community that I try to foster is not about saying mean things, but it is about vetting people, so this is this video. Now, back on topic. The diplomat is a very simple creature. The diplomat sees the game as a negotiation in terms of they don't win, you give them the victory. What do I mean by that? For all of those who are in kind of the CDH scene and know anything about the Northern California tournament scene, there was a player who won the first Silicon Dynasty Showdown. His name was Ben Loeb. Played Tim Malcolm, I believe. He is the quintessential diplomat in that when asked, oh, hey, how did you win this entire thing? He said that it's not that he didn't necessarily win, it's that he was able to maneuver the game in such a way that he was never super deserving of being stomped down. So he was able to sneak a lot of wins in. And so they're very sneaky players in that a good diplomat you'll never know you're being manipulated by the social construct at play here. And that's not to say that's not a viable strategy. That's a completely viable strategy. A lot of people do that in terms of not only Magic, but in real life. You just have to know when the game's being played on you, and you have to be aware of that. So that's the secret to dealing, and therein lies the secret to dealing with a diplomat in life and in Magic, is that you have to know what your boundaries are and what will cost you and what you can afford to take. So eventually when I played against Ben Loeb, or one of the people who plays in a very similar diplomatic way, I played my game, which I thought was me being an outlaw, but turns out, according to one of my friends who very much vehemently denied that. And he said, you are not that. You are something else, but we'll get to that much later because I still have to write that profile. He said you was not willing to play the game he wanted me to play, which was to overextend and use a lot of mind removal to deal with players doing things here or there. And that's the only game I won because I forced the diplomat to not overextend, but actively play in a way that didn't put him at an advantage in terms of playing under the amount of counterspells he had, playing under his card draw, playing under any of this. So what does that look like? So when something's going to happen, instead of relying on the social aspect, if you think that this is a critical turn and you need to actually do something, just do it. That will be your best bet 9 times out of 10, because most people will follow action and not necessarily follow words. And depending on how long you guys are talking, you might lose the plot in terms of the game, in terms of what's going on, based off what a person can have in hand. And sometimes you just need to act. And that's how you play around and in a pod with a diplomat, is that you have to be very mindful and very active in the game. Diplomats thrive on when you are mentally exhausted and ego just burned out of the game. They go the ego exhaustion route. They will present you with so many options, deals, ideas, and things that you're just at some point you're just going to be you know what, screw it, you can have the win, or screw it, you can do whatever you want. And you can't give in to that, which is hard. So my tip for that would be don't fall into ego exhaustion. And there are numerous ways to do that, most of which is don't be hungry when you play the game. A lot of people are well, that's a pretty self-explanatory thing. It's you forget how often people just don't take care of themselves, though. We're all kind of neurodivergent because we played this game about like numbers, math, and pretty colors. So it's quite common where you see people who aren't taking care of their physical needs, and that leaves them very much open to ego exhaustion to the point of breaking. And so you have to be mindful of all of the stuff of like fatigue and stress, and that you have to be willing to take the time in between games to recharge mentally, physically, and occasionally sustainably. So, other solution, and this is the more fun one, make sure you have snacks, make sure you have water, make sure you have appropriate tools to keep your brain, like the actual physical part of your body, moving as efficiently as possible as the mental part, because those go very much hand in hand. And those are my tips of not only winning more Commander games, but also dealing with a diplomat, is that it's like, you gotta be smart in terms of in and out of the game, because a diplomat will know when you haven't eaten in 2.5 hours and you're starving and you're ready to go. So those are all my tips. This is the end of season 1 of Player Profiles. Please don't shorten the name because I want to stay monetized. This has been Victory Dragon King Daigo here. Have a nice night.